Hey everyone, thanks for joining me in another video. I just posted the last Craftsman's Corner. That was episode 10 if you had not seen it already. I want to say thank you to everyone who watched that and responded to the questions and the different things I went through in that video. The different suggestions and comments that people made, very helpful and in general very nice and supportive for the most part. So thank you very much. The topic of this video is going to be showing an alternative method to a traditional mortise and tenon joint. So make sure you can see that this is one of the table legs that I use in the farm tables that I make, and then this is an example of what the tenons look like on the apron boards. The dimensions of this particular apron is 5 inches, just to give you a scale. This is a 3.5 by 3.5 post. So that's all there is to a mortise and tenon joint. Square peg going in a square hole, then it's a lot of glue surface, so this is pretty darn strong. So what I was looking for is a way to speed that up, and as a lot of you that are probably watching this know, Festool makes their different Domino machines. This is the larger one. They have the XL 500 and then the XL 700. I wanted the larger one because this one is capable of holding the biggest bits. Here's the bit that I'll be using today. It's a 14 millimeter. It's basically a carbide tipped end mill, and it's nice and long. And what this tool does is that bit screws onto the end of the motor and it spins like a drill bit, but then it kind of goes like that. So it does a little oscillating cut and drills a hole that these fit into. So basically it drills that hole, and you can stick different sized bits in there. So there's 2 Dominoes side by side. This one, smaller one, is 8 millimeters. This one's 14 millimeters, and then they come in different lengths. The larger machine also drills farther into your material, meaning that you can use up to a 140 millimeter long Domino, and I think that's around 5 inches. This one is 100 millimeters, which is around 3 or so inches, and this is the one that I've been using in some of the sample tables. I've made about I think 7 or 8 tables, and I'm working on one right now that I'm going to use the Dominoes in, and so far they've proved to be plenty strong for what I'm doing. I've done some tests with them and I'm confident in using them in the tables. So let's go ahead and get the machine set up. I'm going to go through the steps, all the steps that I use to get the machine set up and actually cut and glue up those joints. These are the apron boards for the table. They've already been planed just a little bit out of 2x6 material. That was an arbitrary amount that I took off. Basically, I just skimmed a little bit off of each side. Then the boards were cut to length and then ripped to their width. So I need to first measure their actual thickness. Let me turn back to what I'm working on here. So this board right here is an actual piece off the end of one of those. So my tape measure's got metric on the back side. It is a little over 35, so we're going to pretend that this is 36 millimeters. Half of that is 18 millimeters. So the first thing I'll do, I'm going to put the bit in a minute. With this tool, get the viewfinder turned back. With this tool, the fence works similar to a biscuit joiner's fence that's adjustable. So I'll flip that down to 90 degrees. And then I'm going to adjust the scale on this to 18. Let me give you a better view of what I'm doing. So where I'm tightening it is on the right hand side of the tool, but then the actual little rule is on this side, and this is all in metric, so it takes a little getting used to. So I'm going to adjust that to 18 and tighten it up. So the tool is all set up as far as the fence goes. Now we need to turn back to the bench, and we're going to put the actual bit in the machine. For that, you take the wrench that comes with the tool itself, you slip it in here, and you pull up on that little green tab there. That unlocks the whole fence, and I'm going to set this aside. Next thing you're going to do is just thread this right onto the end of the tool. Then once it's on there, you can depress this little green button here. That is a spindle lock, and then you can just tighten it up. You don't have to go crazy. It's going to spin in the direction that tightens it up anyway, so you're not going to under tighten it. Just get it kind of snugged up pretty good. Then you just slide these little rails back into the holes on the motor side of things, and it clicks into place. The last thing you need to do is set the actual depth that the bit will plunge into the piece of wood. You do this with this little green thing here. You'll notice that everything that does anything on the Festool stuff is green, so the power button, thing that takes the fence and stuff off, adjust the width of the cut. So what you do with that is we are going to use 100mm long dominoes. We are going to adjust that to 50mm, and then they have these other little pieces that slide back and forth too. I'm guessing what they're for is if you're switching back and forth from one depth to the other. What I do each time is once I get the actual depth set, I just slide those, and it's just all locked into place now. But that's a pretty positive locking little system there. It's not going to just get thrown out. There are two width adjustments. So when you flip this lever back and forth, you'll see that there's a little small icon image on top that shows the slot size. So one's wider, one's skinnier. The skinnier one is a tight fit. The larger one is just a larger fit to give you some play if you need to do a lot of them in a row, for example. So the tool's all set up. Let's go ahead and, well, there's one more thing. Forgetting that. And that is on the front of the tool, there are these little stops here. They're just basically pins, so you push the little green buttons on the side, and 3 of them will pop up on either side. And for the size aprons I'm going to be using, I need to use the pins in the middle. So I'm going to leave both of those like that, and they're spring loaded. So how you get these in there is you push below the surface, they'll lock, but as long as you're just pushing up against the fence, they're spring loaded, they pop right back up. You'll see how those work in just a second. So with the dominoes, you need to have it hooked up to some sort of dust collection. The obvious choice is just a Festool dust collector. When you buy these tools, you can buy the dust collector at the same time, and it takes some percentage off of, I guess, the whole purchase price or the dust extractor itself. I have a different thing. It's basically the same thing. It is a Bosch dust extractor. What's cool about these types of things is it's sort of a variable speed vacuum cleaner, and then it has 2 selections, just on like a vacuum cleaner, or it can be tool activated. So I've already plugged the actual cord that goes to the domino to the vacuum, and then I just need to plug it into the tool itself. Then you lock it, then you take the end, the vacuum, and that just goes on there. Luckily the Bosch stuff fit this nice, so I didn't have to rig up any kind of adapter or buy a whole separate vacuum for this tool. So that's the whole tool fully set up. Now I just need to cut a practice cut in the board to see if everything's set up right. So now these pins are going to come into play. We're going to pretend that this is one of my apron boards and that this is the top of the apron board that the tabletop will sit right on top of. So we're going to reference off of this regardless of which end. That's why there's 2 pins. On this end of the apron, we're going to use this one, and then when we flip to the other side, we have to use this one. With them being spring-loaded, you don't have to keep pushing them in and popping them back out. So here's how the tool works. Basically, we're just going to put it up against it. This fence has to go flat to the surface, push it up against it, and then slide it to the left. Once it's all in place, you flip the tool on and then slowly plunge in until you get to its full depth. Once you plunge your first hole in, you're going to take that same pin, stick it in the hole you just drilled, move to the and put it to the left side of that hole and drill the next one. So putting that pin in the hole, then I'm going to slide to the left. I wiggle a little bit to make sure I'm seated properly and drill the next domino hole. Here's a closer look at what I just did. So this was that top reference, and this was the outside face that the fence was laying on. You can see that the spacing from the top to the first, I'm going to call a mortise, to the first mortise is greater than the bottom. If you want yours to be even and the pins on the tool itself can't achieve that, you can just put a line going perpendicular off of the edge that you're going to be mortising into, and then there's a little cursor right on the tool that you can line up with that and cut them anywhere you want them. The pins make things very convenient, and in this case I like that there's some room here because that keeps that actual mortise away from the very top of my table leg, which I think is stronger. Once you've made your practice cuts and you've confirmed that either your mortises are being cut in the correct place or you've made the adjustments that you need to make on the tool itself to make them in the right place, then you're ready to cut the mortises into your actual apron boards. I'm going to start with my short aprons and then move on to the side aprons of the table, which are the longer ones. The thing you're going to really make sure you need to do is make sure that you have your reference faces and edges of your boards all figured out beforehand to where you don't get mixed up. That's why I marked it on the practice board, outside face and the top. So in this case, I'll just put some little X's. That marks the top edge and the outside face, and then I can do that on the opposite side as well, and that way I don't get confused when I'm flipping the boards around. So I'm going to get these cut now. The next step is using the tool to cut the mortises into the leg. If I leave the machine set up as is, it will make the outside of the aprons and the outsides of the legs flush. But I want mine to be set in a little bit, about a quarter or a half inch or so. Something about right there, and that's roughly a centimeter, which is convenient because this tool is metric. It's currently set on 18 millimeters, so all I'm going to do is loosen it up, raise it up to 28 millimeters, and I'm not even being that exact. It doesn't matter. Once the tool's set up, it's going to cut everything the same. If you do want to be exact, you can, take time and be exact. So with the tool all set up, I've already chosen where I want these mortises to be. So I want one here and here. That's where the aprons will connect. And of course, the top is the same regardless of which one you're cutting. Before I cut all the joints into the leg, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the joint was cut properly and that everything lines up. So I'm going to take my practice apron, tap in the dominoes. That's nice and flush, and the amount the apron is set in looks good. The first step in assembly is gluing the dominoes into the ends of the aprons. This step is, the whole glue up is what will take you the longest in this whole process, where normally the setup of the tool and the cutting of your mortises and tenons would take the longest, but the tool works so fast. First step in gluing up, just get some glue down into the slots, the holes, however you can. I use a 1-inch chip brush. I think that works pretty good. It fits the holes nicely. I brush a little bit of glue onto the tenons themselves to avoid any sort of a dry fit. Then I'm just going to hammer them in. And I'm going to do this to all the apron boards, and then I'll move on to actually attaching the aprons to the legs. The next step is the same, except you're going to put the glue on the inside of the mortises on the legs. Again, using the chip brush. Once the glue is in the mortises. Doing the same thing, brush it on the tenons. And you're going to make sure that you're aligning the top edge and the outside face going in the right direction and get everything slid into place. You're going to do this and assemble the entire base, and for clamping everything together, I use band clamps. These band clamps come from Harbor Freight. Here's a new pack of them that I haven't opened yet, so that's what they look like. I think they're about $5, and you can join them together to do really big tables. I just made a huge table where I had about four or so of those joined together, and they come with these little corner blocks, so they're really handy. And one tip is if you just throw a clamp on each leg under the apron, that will hold the strap up while you work your way around the table until you get it tightened. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of the table assembled. And that wraps up the whole process of using the Domino 700. The same thing applies to the 500 for putting together a table base. I realize that this is sort of a specialty tool and it's an expensive tool, so it might not apply to all of everyone watching, but it's good to see different options. You never know what you're going to need to do in the future. In my case, a tool like this is well worth the cost for how much it speeds things up. The time that this saves me, it allows me to do other things that more than pay for this thing. It's already paid for itself. If you have any questions about it, be sure to let me know. You can check out Festool's website, of course. They make very nice videos about their products. And then another YouTube channel, the fellow's name is Paul Marcel. His channel's name is, I think, Half Inch Shy. He really nerds out on some Festool stuff and really gets into the details and shows different things you can do with them. And I think he does a very good job. I've enjoyed watching his channel and researching different tools that I've considered buying from Festool. So I think that pretty much wraps it all up. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Share the video with someone that it may be useful to. And you can check out my website as well, thehomesteadcraftsman.com. I've got different things on there, like these hand-planed t-shirts. I have an ebook on there about the process of when I developed this table. So it's a book about developing products to sell and different furniture plans. Only have one on there this very second, but there'll be more to come, and if you're watching this in the future, there may already be more on there already. So thank you for watching. I'll see you later. If you're new to my channel and not already a subscriber, click the red button on the screen now and you will get updates when I post future videos. And if you haven't seen my website before, it is www.thehomesteadcraftsman.com. Thanks for watching.